Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, as part of Sue Gray Report Week, I'd like to discuss the latest U-turn from Downing Street over the report row that happened yesterday, how Dominic Cummings popped up again to suggest that we may soon be flooded with a lot more information on Partygate than might otherwise have been expecting. And then, of course, we had ITV posting exclusive of Boris Johnson boozing at a drinky-do during lockdown. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So you may think I'm just going to focus on the recently emerged photos here, and I am going to discuss them. And just to give you an indication of how bad they are, virtually every newspaper, mainstream newspaper in this country, had it on the front page today. Not the Daily Mail, they decided to attack rail workers instead. And the least said about the Sun, the better, as a general rule. But I am going to discuss those, but there were yesterday really two big revelations. And I want to go over both of them, and in chronological order. So when the news emerged that Boris Johnson had a meeting with Sue Gray, Downing Street denied that they called the meeting from their end. Now, I had discussed this already and said that the idea that Gray herself would have called it is ludicrous. Nothing to do with the personalities. A permanent secretary simply does not call for meetings with the Prime Minister. If such a meeting takes place, which it could do, in theory, it would always be at the behest of Downing Street. Permanent secretaries meet with their secretaries of state, or they'll meet with the cabinet secretary. That can happen. But if they want to raise something at the political level, it will be with their Secretary of State. Their Secretary of State would then meet with the Prime Minister, should any issues at all at the political level need raising. Anyone interested in politics knows this. Yesterday morning, Simon Case, a Tory minister, carried out interviews defending Johnson and claiming that it was Sue Gray who called for the meeting. The front page of the Daily Mail yesterday attacked Gray for playing politics. Then the Liberal Democrats proposed a vote in Parliament to force the release of the minutes of the meeting. Now, Downing Street say they won't be releasing the minutes of the meeting. If Parliament tells them to, they will be doing. But never mind that. Within the hour, Downing Street said, oh, actually, yeah, it looks like we called for the meeting after all. They worded it as an official at Downing Street called the meeting, not Boris Johnson. So in one fell swoop, Johnson threw one of his own MPs under the bus, as well, of course, as an official. Again, latest narrative also a lie. Officials don't arrange meetings of this sort without ministerial direction. It simply doesn't happen. For that meeting to have taken place, Boris Johnson must personally have asked for it. Anyone involved in politics knows how it works. So any Tory MP who's tried to back up Johnson's position on this, either of them, those positions, because remember it changed yesterday, is deliberately colluding in a public deception. Simon Clarke, case in point. He categorically stated to the public via television interviews that Sue Gray called for the meeting. Categorically insisted upon it. Downing Street confirmed this to be untrue later that day. So Simon Clarke has been exposed as a liar now. And it makes no difference whether he knew he was lying or that he was told that Gray initiated the meeting without actually knowing himself. He passed on a message from a known liar to the public. An MP with any integrity would have at best said they had been told that Sue Gray called for the meeting. He didn't. He lied. Johnson makes all of his MPs lie. Some are getting sick of it and playing no further part. Some keep doing it because they've got more regard for their promotion prospects under a lame duck Prime Minister than they do for their office or for the public. But do know that there has been an admission that minutes exist. So if Parliament does decide that they need to see them, or that at the very least the Privileges Committee should see them, then they can order their release. That being said, it's very unlikely that the minutes would have been written by anyone who's going to have dropped Johnson in it. They would have been written by the Cabinet Secretary. And I can say, as a former secretary myself of various committees in the past, I understand the art of minute writing. You don't put anything in there that you don't want. Doesn't matter what people say. So there may not be anything spicy in them at all. Just the fact that the meeting took place is questionable, and now there can be no doubt that it was ordered at Johnson's end, even if he's trying to blame his officials. Also, the Times this morning is reporting that Johnson used that meeting to try and pressure Sue Gray into dropping her report. Now, of course, we can't know for certain what did happen, but it is bound to raise a lot of questions. Though those questions are going to have to come quickly, because Parliament is breaking for another recess after only being back for a couple of weeks again. Boris Johnson really doesn't like Parliament sitting, does he? But then yesterday, Dominic Cummings popped up again. Throw some extra spice around. Now, usual disclaimer here, Dominic Cummings obviously tells the odd fib himself and is desperate for not only Boris Johnson to fall, but to be seen as instrumental in his fall. It will satisfy his ego to think that he made Boris Johnson and can break him just as easily. But he claimed we could be a day or two away from an avalanche of photographic evidence of these parties being released by disgruntled junior staff, pissed off that they've been clobbered with fines when the people who made them go to the parties got away with it. Now, before we get onto the specifics here, this is what I would say in general. And I've said this before. But put yourselves in the shoes of someone who has incriminating photographs of Boris Johnson, clearly in party mood at one of these events. This hypothetical person has to be someone who hasn't felt the need to release it before now, because remember, there's been plenty of opportunities, but also be willing to release it at some point. Because there may be people with a lot of incriminating photos who will never release them. So would this hypothetical person really release it this week? I mean, they might, indeed, someone has. You know, it might be one of these disgruntled junior staff didn't release it before out of loyalty, but now felt that their loyalty is misplaced and they're ready to wreak their revenge. But as I've said before, if I had really damning photographs and I was prepared to release them in order to inflict major damage on Boris Johnson, I would wait. Because if I release them now, yeah, it'd be sensational. Of course, it has been. But it's not guaranteed to bring Johnson down. In fact, it's very unlikely to. Right now, I get the feeling that Tory MPs are afraid to force Johnson out. They seem to be waiting for the Privileges Committee to do the dirty work for them. And even that might not do it. And of course, their investigation will only be just beginning. No, I'd wait. I'd hang on to those photographs. I'd actually hang on to them to the general election. If Johnson has already been deposed by then, fine, no problem. Maybe I'd rethink leaking them at all. But if he's still in charge, come the general election has been called, right? It's now too late for the Conservatives to drop him. That's when I'd leak it. Of course, it also hurts Johnson and the Conservatives backing him to have a steady drip of new photos. The ones published yesterday and on the front pages today are not a good look. But they will not be the last. We know that because the Gray report is going to contain photos investigated, apparently. It may well be that what's been released yesterday is the worst of them. But there may be still others that were never part of the investigation that will still come out. You know, and what we can see from these photos, it's inconceivable that Boris Johnson could claim to have been unaware of parties in Downing Street when we see photographs like this. This isn't like a glass of wine at a meeting or a few nibbles during an otherwise boring PowerPoint presentation, which, by the way, never happened in any meeting I took place in. But okay, you know, different cultures. They're raising glasses. There's no work going on. It's not a break for a meal. It's not, it is a party. It might have been a short one, but still. The argument is, because it's a sending off for a colleague. This is Lee Kane, one of Boris Johnson, or really someone close to Dominic Cummings when they were doing the clear out. So this was Lee Kane's leaving do, right? And because it's a sending off for a colleague, they call it work. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not going to disagree with that. It's a normal part of the work process, isn't it? A colleague leaves, you have a few words. Maybe in some places you do have a drink. I've never had one myself in any place I've worked, but maybe in some places you do. Okay. But remember, this was lockdown. The law at the time didn't allow gatherings, even for work purposes. You don't get to say, oh, well, it is the sort of thing that happens in work. Doesn't matter. The law still said you couldn't do it. For the gathering to take place, by law, the activity had to be reasonably necessary for the purpose of work. Although it is fine to have a sending off during normal times, it's not a reasonably necessary activity for the work going on in Downing Street. People leaving their place of work up and down the country did not get drinks and nibbles and drunken speeches to mark the occasion during the lockdowns. They may have been given a card and a bag of goodies at best. Sanitised, of course. But this is what people discussing this photo should consider. It doesn't matter whether you think the activity was a purely social event or if it was considered a normal part of work or not. Was it actually necessary for the work? No. the Met Police concluded that it was. Now, without immediately saying that the police corruptly came to this conclusion, I would certainly like to hear their legal thinking on that one. Especially as the police said that Boris Johnson was not even sent a questionnaire about this event. That means they didn't even consider that he'd broken the law. But other people there, the people blurred out in that photo, some of those people were fined. You know, I think it's a matter of public interest. As it happens, the Good Law Project think it is as well. They're seeking a judicial review into the Met Police's handling of this investigation. So this isn't necessarily over yet. And bear in mind, like I said, some of those people blurred out received fines from the police. So the police determined that that gathering was illegal. But they also determined that not only was Boris Johnson not himself breaking the law there, even though others were, it wasn't even worth their while even asking him about it because they didn't give him a questionnaire. This is one of the 5 illegal parties that he attended for which other attendees were fined and he was not. Why not? Why not? If it was reasonably necessary for work for Boris Johnson, why wasn't it for the more junior staff with glasses he filled up with booze? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. Maybe even click on the join button if you're interested in memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.